Hello, good morning, Sjanie. Good morning, Alexandra. Thank you
Morning.
for agreeing to chat with me about your new book, Wild Power. I am very excited to hear all about it.
Mm.
Can you
Well,
tell
I'm
me? Oh, go on.
really excited to be talking to you, Kate.
Thank you.
It's going to be fun.
Can you say a little bit, Sjanie, about how menstruality became your life? Is it your life's work? It became this
Mm.
amazing force in your life, please.
Mm. Yeah, phew. I mean, it began at menarche, although I had no idea. It's only looking back, I'm like, that's when it started. Um, but really, for me, it was when I was in my early 20s. I went on first the pill. Thought I was being really uh, responsible by going on the pill, and I had a very bad reaction to that. And then I went on contraceptive injection, and that I don't know if you know, but it shuts down your cycle completely.
Wow.
So I was on that for about 7 years. I mean, I think about that now, I can hardly believe it. I think of it as the seven barren years of my life because all the emotional juice, all the passion, all the momentum in my life wasn't there. And actually, what started happening was I started having all kinds of symptoms, all kinds of issues showing up. But the one that stopped me dead in my tracks was that I started experiencing pain after I had orgasms.
Oh,
And I mean, that's one thing to catch my attention.
yeah.
Don't get in the way of my sexual pleasure. Uh, and so I actually had to do something about it. And when I came off, I had a feeling it was to do with the contraception. All signs pointed to that. And when I came off contraception and my cycle started coming back, it was such a shift in my experience of myself and my life. Everything changed. I mean, I felt like a different person. I felt like for the first time ever, I was experiencing myself as a woman, and I started to feel things more strongly, and um, uh, just inspiration and intuition and instinct, and um, my whole experience of life changed. I actually felt much more in my body and much more present and much more connected to the the deeper forces of life. And that was really the call for me. It was that I felt, there's something in this. There's something in this menstrual cycle. There's something in this rhythm in my body as I was feeling it that is profound, and no one's talking about it. And that's where I started looking in all sorts of places to find out more. And of course, I found my way to Alexandra's first book, The Wild Genie,
Yes.
and she was speaking about the spiritual forces and the powers in a woman's body, and that was really exciting to me. So I, of course, then tracked her down, and well, that was how we first met.
It sounds like you went from Kansas, you like Dorothy, you went from Kansas to Oz, and everything was in
Yeah, actually,
Technicolor.
that's a really good way of explaining it. From really being lost in this kind of barren place to suddenly just discovering the magnificence of life and the technicolor of life. It was to do with it was to do with once again having this rhythm. Like rhythm is life, and to feel that rhythm in my body plugged me back into myself.
And you're a dancer
Uh,
as well, so that
and I'm a dancer. And
that
funny
really
enough, the two things I discovered. Well, I've danced my whole life, but I discovered movement as medicine at the same time as my cycle came back. When the rhythm
okay.
came back in my body,
Yeah.
I began dancing as a form of meditation,
Yeah.
as a form of healing. It was, yeah. So the two things happened at the same
Yeah.
time.
Gosh. Yes, that coming alive, that process of coming alive must have been extraordinary for the people around you as well to see to
Yeah,
see.
it was a little unnerving, Kate. I have to be honest. I I felt I felt kind of crazy for a while. I have to be honest with you. It was suddenly, it was like all this pent up, like a dam wall, all this pent up energy and life force was suddenly released, and it was like letting a wild animal out of its cage. There were times when I felt like I was going a bit crazy. It took me a while to find myself again. And of course, my 7-year relationship ended, my career changed, like everything changed.
Wow.
It was a force to be reckoned with. Yeah.
I'm going to come back to crazy later because that sparks a whole train of thought for me. But can I ask the same question to you, Alexandra, about how menstruality became this? I mean, I see you walking around with this is like Mount Rushmore of a menstruality, walking around carrying this thing, and here you are, postmenopausal, and it's time. But I can you say a bit about what first got you started, please?
Well, do you know, I feel I came in with it, and then there were kind of lights on the path that woke up things, and I couldn't not stay true to it. But it took years to be able to name what it was that I was doing, or what it was that was waking up in me. But I always kept faith with something that was moving me, and I speak of it as grace. You know, there was a grace at work, that my life felt meaningful, even though on the surface my life did not look particularly promising. But there was this deep sense of meaningfulness. And so, like Sjanie, menarche, I had this beautiful moment of awakening just before my very first bleed that lasted for about 36 hours. It was staggering. I've never forgotten it. And I feel in that moment, I want to cry when I say this, but in that moment, it's so moving. I felt like the spiritual forces announced themselves to me, and that I was held, because I was an innocent, and, you know, and I was held by something. And then my blood came, and I felt a huge pride. And then, you know, I felt always called by spiritual matters in general. And so I began a movement practice in my when I was 19, which I did for 15, 16 years, and it was called Shintaido. And I went to Japan and studied it, and that was sort of my spiritual way. So that then held me whilst I was sort of finding who I was within that. So in my 20s, I had this instinct to follow natural fertility management after a brief foray on the pill, and woke up, like Sjanie woke up, going there. And so I felt I was a feminist, and I thought women should be in charge of their bodies, and they shouldn't have these things controlling their bodies, and they should know how their bodies work. So that was the sort of beginning part. And then I discovered the book The Wise Wound in my mid-20s, but it didn't really mean anything in a deep, intellectually it did, but not emotionally. But the fateful moment, the great announcement, the formal announcement of my calling came just before my 31st birthday. And I was in Australia then. I was living in Australia. And I got the menstrual pain from hell. And this pain came back every month. And I made the radical decision, and I don't know where it came from, but I made the decision to believe in my body and follow it, that my body was talking to me. And, you know, it wasn't a tidy journey, but the rest is history. You know, here I stand with Sjanie teaching this amazing work, you know, at Red School. And, you know, it's like way back then, my deep soul, self, body, self, whatever, knew the gestalt of this, knew the hugeness. And I was being kind of drip fed through the years, elements, you know, and which I then started sharing with women. And then, of course, women's stories. It's always women's stories, women's actual experiences. If women only believed in their experiences, which is what I did, then the story is there. It reveals itself, you know, and it especially reveals itself in women's suffering. And, you know, it came out of suffering for me. So, yeah, that's sort of how it unfolded. I kept faith with something. And occasionally I would go, gee, I don't know if this is a good career move, you know. It's not like people are flocking to workshops on menstruation. And at one point, I didn't even put menstruation in the title of the workshop. I sort of fudged it. And I had women turn out not realizing it was about menstruation. And that's another story. That was a wild story. And that particular woman actually became one of my biggest supporters. She was hilarious. But yes, you know, I think this is a good career move. and I would think, oh, maybe I should just go off and do a master's in, because I was a psychotherapist, I'll go and do a master's in, psychotherapy or something. And then my heart would sink. And then I thought, oh, maybe I'll do a PhD in social ecology, because I'd already done some social ecology, and I'll make menstruation the focus. And I think, oh, that is like a black hole to hell to go and do a PhD on this work. That'll kill this work, And again, my heart collapsed. And I just kept keeping faith. And I think the universe kept giving me signals and signs and things happening. I have been held all the way. And there have been these people who've turned up at particular moments. And Sjanie, of course, was one of those women, that they were like handing the baton. I can almost name all the women that came at the right moments and were with me. And again, I want to cry. And they like and then the baton would be handed to another one and so on. And then, Sjanie and I met, and then the whole thing has now exploded because it's now the time.
Well, that leads beautifully into what's my next question that's burning away here, is that it does seem the momentum has gathered. It does seem to be the time for menstruality. And there's a real zeitgeist around it. There's a real movement around it, not just within our community, but within the wider world as well. And I was wondering, why now? Why do you think now, Sjanie, why now? What is it about our society at the moment that allows, which in some ways is so very, very rigid in terms of appearance and body image and behaviour and stuff, and yet somehow there's some kind of there must be some crack somewhere to let all this flood of blood come through. So I wondered what you thought about that.
Oh, it's a very interesting question. I mean, I would probably play around with it for a while, but actually when you were speaking, I was thinking, I mean, why now? I think because it's needed, because it's necessary, because it's vital. It's the medicine for our times. I really deeply feel that. It's what we're all yearning for, and it's what we're all thirsty for. So on some level, we've all been seeking this out. It's when you go without something for a while, it's so easy to build up an appetite, isn't it? And because this knowledge has been denied for so long, our appetite and hunger for it has grown. Our recognition of its place has become more and more clear. So I feel like I'm thinking of it in terms of the creative process. When you get to a certain point where you've come to the end of something, which I feel we have, culturally and environmentally, and we've come to the end of something. And at that moment, when we've come to the end, something new is waiting to be born. And we experience that in our bodies every month, and I feel like that's what's happening. We've come to the end of one way of being, and now it's time for a whole new story to emerge. And I'm curious to know what Alexandra says in response to that. It's a good question. It's fascinating.
It's a fantastic question, and I love your answer. I actually think that's the best answer. I mean, all I can say is the time. I think there's actually, Kate, I just don't want to add anything more. I think Sjanie said it beautifully. I would just be faffing. Fluffing. I'd be fluffing around it.
Yeah. The hunger and the longing.
It is the hunger and longing for the feminine. And the psyche is yearning for this now. It's this moisture that we need, this soul that we need, this soulfulness. And this menstruality work is one very powerful channel through which this can return. Because our heads are not involved, you see. It comes through the body. And the body is so true. And the head can't, the head tries to do a number on it. It's been trying to some time. But the body's time has come. The soul's time has come.
So, do you have a copy of your book? Can you show us your beautiful cover?
God, yes.
Can you get it up? Yay! There it it is, Wild Power. And what is, lots of words.
Lots of words, 65,000. We
and a few pictures too.
And some pictures.
Pictures in there, yeah. It's there we get back cover, front cover. It's a really lovely size book. We really love the whole kind of look of the book. That's really important to us as well as the fact that the cover. I love the cover.
It's a great cover.
And yes, it's blood on the cover.
It's not Merlot.
No, it's not. You would think of that, wouldn't you?
So there's. Oh, and when is it published? And give us the gubbins. When's it published?
It's the 4th of April.
4th of April.
When it's officially out, but you can pre-order it already now.
And there's a gift, isn't there, with the pre-order? You get a special.
There is. So if you pre-order and go to redschool.net/wildpower,
yes.
You just enter your name, email address, and your order number wherever you've ordered it from, and we'll send you a Love Your Cycle kit, which is a combination of a very beautiful guided meditation process, the Inner Seasons exercise, and a ebook, which is going to get you into gear with your cycle and help you to discover what there is to love about cyclical life and about being a woman. So
well worth ordering. I would say. I've been enjoying your podcast series, but can you say, because there's a fair bit of work about menstruality. There's your books, Alexandra, and there's all sorts of, and Lisa Listers, and there's all sorts of books out there. What does Wild Power bring that those other books don't? What is unique about this new piece of work that you're bringing?
Another simple question.
Sorry. But I've got to ask interesting questions because otherwise what's the point?
We love you, Kate. Because we get to do really meaty answers. Well, yes, all of us, I think, bring a slightly different angle to the work. But our work, firstly, I want to say, what we're writing now has been cooked out of over 30 years of paying attention to the cycle. Well, the combined years, 40 years, actually. And it is really a restoration of the initiatory way of women, the feminine path, if you like, to power. It is what we are really very clearly saying is that the female body comes coded with a spiritual practice, a spiritual way and practice. And in Wild Power, we're sort of bedding down the psychological and spiritual infrastructure of our beings. Now, this initiatory way. So that's really what the book is about. It's the foundation. And our work has many layers to it. So you can channel this menstruality work into the area of just well-being, self-care, stress management, that sort of thing, personal development. And then you can also channel the work into the whole area of creativity and bringing your expressions out into the world. We love teaching on that creativity work. That's not spirituality, I think. And then there's what we call the spiritual layer of the work. And of course, really all those three layers work together. But we flesh them out because this work is so nuanced, deep, rich and subtle. And the more we pay attention to it, the more we have realized or can sense and see into the subtleties of the work. So Wild Powers, the aim of Wild Power is to give women the real foundations for this full, extraordinary kind of cosmology, the feminine cosmology, if you like. That's the foundation. And really, we've got other books. There are at least, 2 or 3 more books probably in us, aren't there, Sjanie, on building on this knowledge. Sjanie, do you want to come in and say some more things there?
So your question, Kate, was what is different about
what is
this
different
book?
or what is new about Wild Power that hasn't been said before? What are you bringing to the table that is?
I have to
how
be
are you
bold
deepening or expanding?
I have to be bold and say, what is in Wild Power is utterly original. There is nothing else like this book. It is utterly original, and it comes from, as Alexandra said, 30 odd years of listening to women and women's stories, it's a tapestry of women's stories that have been weaved together to illustrate this architecture of our being, and that has never been named before. What it really means to be a woman, what our spiritual, psychological, emotional architecture is like, how we operate, how we evolve, and it's completely different to the way that men do. So we're naming that, and that's never been done before. It's utterly original, I have to say. It's in the field of menstruality, but our particular expression of it is the whole thing is it's fresh. It's really fresh, Kate. It's fresh, and it's new, and it's hot. It's hot off the press as well.
Very hot off the press.
So just to yes, I have so many questions.
Yeah,
but I think that it would be good to ground this in sort of real life actionable stuff for women who are watching this.
Good idea.
So, there's so many questions, but I don't want to go on too long. So, if women have heard about menstruality and stuff, quite often, the thing that sticks in their mind is about resting while they menstruate. And this provokes quite a strong reaction in most women, as I'm sure that you come across every time you suggest it. Women, if you suggest that you go slow at menstruation, women freak out. What? I can't do that. So, what is the one thing, if you could give 1, 2, maybe 3 small things that women can do in order to access this initiatory journey, this whole code about how to be a woman. I mean, I'm banging, I want to know how to be a woman. Show me how to do that. That would be really good. To be this crazy alive, to move from Kansas into Oz, into Technicolor. Could you give me, or maybe you could both think of one small thing that women could integrate into their lives, daily lives, that would help with that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll begin, Alexandra. I want to just speak to that piece about stopping at menstruation and one small thing that people can do to support that.
Yeah.
It is paying attention to their cycle all month long, because part of what makes it difficult to stop is that we're going at full speed. It's like, actually, my husband was brilliant once. I said to him, I was just talking about the momentum of my work and my life, and struggling to rest. Same thing, I struggle with it too. And I said, it's like trying to slow down a juggernaut. And he turned around and said to me, well, there is a way to slow down a juggernaut. I was like, huh? He's like, yeah. He's like explained, a juggernaut's this massive like truck, and all you have, what you mustn't do is slam your foot on the brakes, because you'll go whiplashing around. You just tap the brakes like this, and then over time it slows down. Genius.
Yeah.
And that's what the menstrual cycle does. If you're paying attention to your menstrual cycle all month long, sure, there's a point at which it has huge momentum around ovulation, there's a lot of speed, but then from ovulation coming back to menstruation, there are a number of days where you are, if you're paying attention, your cycle is helping you to tap on the brakes to slow down, so that you're slowing down bit by bit. By the time you get to menstruation, try to put your foot on the brakes when it's like, oh, I'm bleeding.
That's brilliant image.
It's brilliant. So that would be my one practical tip. Pay attention to your cycle. And now what I've said there is very general. So you really need to learn, if you don't know what that means, you need to learn about menstrual cycle awareness and how to pay attention to your cycle and and what that means. But that's essentially the way in. Pay attention to your cycle all month long, and your cycle will slow you down if you're listening and responding.
Sorry, I have to ground this even more. What does it mean? What do you mean by pay attention? So if there's something that a woman can do once a day, how does she pay attention?
Know what day you're on of your cycle. So day 1 is the first day of bleeding. Every day, write down what day you're on of your cycle, and at the end of the day, write down a few words that capture the mood. And I mean, just to begin with, just say your energy levels on that day. But if you want to get fancy, your mood, your energy, your dreams. But at least write down what your energy levels are like that day, because that's going to help you to notice how much energy you've got. So that would be a very simple way of doing it. Write down each day what day of your cycle you're on, and write down what your energy levels are like. And then the second bit is respond to that. So if your energy is low and you're tired, rest. If you've got a lot of energy, go for it. Use it. Yeah.
Thank you. Beautiful.
You're welcome.
Okay, you'll go, Alexandra.
Right, being practical. Well, I'm going to be impractical for a moment and say, when you're connected to your menstrual cycle in the way that Sjanie has described, you're connected to yourself, and you're connected to your true self in the sense of your true energy levels, your true emotional state. And so learning to be aware of that and honor that more and more is going to create actually less stress in your life. And if you have less stress, you have more well-being. You just feel better. So working with the cycle is a way of really working with the energies of who you are. And so you're much more in touch with yourself. And if you're more in touch with yourself, you are much more strategic and smart about how you do use your time and energy. It is actually quite revelatory, this simple act of cycle awareness. Mm-hmm. So in a way, point number 1 is cycle awareness, point number 2 is cycle awareness, and point number 3 is cycle awareness. And because as you do it, it's like an inner world wakes up. You start to you start to be kinder to yourself. Mm-hmm. And we hear this over and over again. There's this kindness comes in, and with the kindness comes an increase of self-esteem. So you're able to assert yourself better. You get much smarter about your boundaries. And you get much more strategic about how you use your time and energy. And I want to say something really strongly and clearly here. That rest and downtime aren't optional extras. They're not optional extras. And the amazing thing for us women is we have this magnificent built-in monthly reminder to chill. But it isn't just about rest. Menstruation asks you to stop because something else is trying to happen. You're being it's like we use this lovely phrase, actually, it's a very blokey phrase. It's like a pit stop. In the sort of race of life, it's like this pit stop. It was Sjanie's images, and I love it. You come to a hole, you fill up the tank, but you are literally filling up your physical tank at menstruation, but also your kind of spiritual, emotional, everything. Everything's sort of rewired, and it's like you go out reborn again with a fresh energy. This is gold, and it is given to us free. Every month. The only thing we have to do is do nothing. We have to get out of our own way. We have to drop our bundle. And I tell you, I am going to give one really practical thing now to do with this, because, of course, our world is not set up to support us to stop. So we say to women, find your 1%. Just start doing 1% of what you'd love. Find that 1%. And we've had hilarious stories of women who've done their 1%, like 1 hour off. And then before you know it, and this is a woman, I love her story. She has 2 children and, she comes from a very traditional matrilineal line of, the mother is there for everybody but herself. She now takes a whole day off. Ooh. And it's non-negotiable. And her husband respects it. And it all began when she just carved out that 1 hour.
It grows.
It grows.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for your time and your energy and wise words and practical help as well. I'm really looking forward to reading the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank
you so much.
I just want to say, Kate, it's just a sheer pleasure and joy talking to you.
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. I've loved your questions. It's been great. Thank you very, very much.
I'll see you soon.
Bye. Bye.